And I did put on this example, simplify or rewrite, because we're trying to prove this cofunction identity that shows up on our formula chart using the sum and difference formulas. So once again here, you can consider this alpha and this is beta. So I have cosine of alpha minus beta. If I go to my formula chart, I have cosine of alpha minus, which is the sign on the bottom. So it's going to be cosine cosine plus sine sine. So let's go ahead and expand this out. This is going to be equivalent to cosine cosine. So cosine of pi over 2, cosine of theta. The formula, again, since I'm using the minus sign, I have to change it over to plus between them. So plus sine sine. So sine of pi over 2, sine of theta. What is pi over 2? Yeah, so pi over 2 is equivalent to 90 degrees. Notice how for this, there is no special right triangle. So instead of, sketching 90 degrees and trying to come up with, the using SOHCAHTOA, using the right triangle, I'm going to instead use the cosine of x graph, the parent function, because this is one of those markers right there. So where does cosine start? At the top at 1, and then it jumps down here. So remember the key points. It does something like this. And remember the key points period is going to be 2 pi, halfway is pi, and then this we're at pi over 2, and this is 3 pi over 2. Now we want to know what is the value of cosine at pi over 2. So according to my sketch, what is the value? Cosine of pi over 2 is equal to what? 0. So now I'm just going to replace that. This is going to be equivalent to, instead of cosine of pi over 2, I'm going to put, well, no, not cosine 0, just 0. Because the whole thing is 0. 0 times cosine of theta plus, now I need to evaluate sine. So now I need the sine graph. So let's go ahead and sketch our sine graph. Sine instead starts off where? At the origin, yeah. So it starts here, goes up here. So just remember your key points. And same markers, 2 pi, pi. But I'm interested in the pi over 2. So what's the value at this point? 1. Yes. So then I'm going to go ahead and put on here sine. I should label this as the sine of x graph. So I'm going to put down here sine of pi over 2 is equivalent to 1. Let's go back to our problem and replace 1 here times sine of theta. Now, if I simplify this, continue with this whole thing right here, 0 times cosine of theta is going to evaluate or simplify to 0. And I'll be left with just simply this, 1 times sine of theta, which is simply sine of theta. And if you look at your cofunction formula, it does state that cosine of pi over 2 minus theta is sine of pi. And in fact, if we have time, we'll look at the graphs of this, and we're going to apply the transformations like we did in last semester college algebra, so we can kind of prove also graphically why this works. All right, so that's how you're going to be doing